in the workshop. Okay, so I am cutting, as the title says, strapping material, which I'm going to be using to make the handles for this bag. So we're back at the bag making. So this is the bag, and as you can see, we have a double buckle on each side, and this is going to be allowing a strap to go through there, much like a belt buckle, where you can adjust the height if necessary, and also makes for simple attachment or deattachment if you want to remove the handles and just rely on the shoulder strap. So it's a bit more modular, I guess, in that sense. This is a prototype. This is what I measured out to get the drop that I want. And when it comes to bag making, the drop is the measurement from the inside of the handle to where the top of the bag begins, okay? Not accounting, accounting for, as you can see, it bows in the middle as I'm holding it on either side. So you want to make sure that you're not accounting for that in the drop. Is literally just the top edge. So you need to lay something off. I'll go through it a little bit later on. But essentially, that's what I'm doing today. So I'm cutting these lengths. And I'm going to be using a round knife for this. You know what? Let's give this a bit of a polish. Flipping over, I'll do a few on this side as well. Okay, so I've put some lines along here, which you might be able to see there. Okay, so I just kind of measured it out and used the scratch wheel to go along. And it's pretty easy to follow these lines. If you make like a deep line in there, not necessarily the point of the blade, but once you initially start the cut, you can roll it forward a little bit more, put more blade mass into the cut, so there's more surface area of blade in the cut, which means it's harder to steer left or right. Because if ever you've used a round knife, if you want to go around a tight corner, you have to rock the handle back to then go around a tight corner, and then when you're back on a straight again, you can roll it forward. So that's the benefit of a round knife. So you want to get that initial set position. And if you can, some light either side so you can see what you're doing. These cuts are about 1 meter long. And you might notice me wearing a glove on my left hand here. I don't know if these lives are mirrored. I think they're mirrored anyway. This is my left hand here. Just because I always keep it on the edge of the table. So if I've got a spare hand, I'm not using this one. This one's not going to cut, obviously. But just stick it on. I don't need dexterity here, and I'm going to be using the skiving machine next, and I usually sharpen it up. It needs a good sharpen as well. So I'll be putting a little prod inside to get rid of the burr. And it's always a good idea just to have one on hand. Excuse the pun. And normally you could very easily use a strap cutter for this. But if I find when using a strap cutter and you're cutting multiple straps, it's a bit like a bread tin. You know, every time you make a dent in it, the next loaf of bread has a dent in it, and so on and so forth. If for whatever reason you come off track or anything like that on a strap cutter, when you're cutting multiple lengths, you'll find by the last one, you'll look along the edge and it's kind of like wavy. Whereas if you mark them out with a steel rule and follow them with this, overall it's straighter. Because if I made a little bit of a mistake on that one, which it doesn't look like I have, I've kept it within the line, that then doesn't transfer to the next cut and the next cut and the next cut, if you know what I mean. So if you're careful with the strap cutter, you can do quite a few before it makes a difference. But if ever you do make a difference, you've then got to re-straighten that edge up again with a ruler and a craft knife and then start over, which is really annoying. Leather cutting knife sharpening, please. Says Morthy. I have a blog on my website, leathercraftmasterclass.com, and you'll see in the top section there's a blog. One of my recent blogs was actually how to sharpen cutting knives for leather. So that will be a good place to start. But of course, I do have Techniques of the Blade, which is one of the courses that I produce. Obviously, that's paid for content. And Techniques of the Blade Advanced Sharpening. And that's where I tackle how to re-profile an edge on here accurately and also sharpen it up. Can we use scissors to achieve the same results? Says Muchi, if I pronounced that correctly. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, you could use like leather shears. I'll show you what I'm talking about. It will cut through thick hide pretty well. Let's cut a nice piece so I can test the blade depth on the skiving knife later. But the issue is, once you get past that initial cut, you've now got the handle and your hand in the cut as well. So you've got to try and twist the leather that you're cutting out the way, and it makes it a little bit more difficult. And as you're coming along the edge, you're having to hold it up to keep most of the handle out of the cut, which makes it very difficult to keep straight. It's a pain to do. For short pieces, a scissor is fine, or for soft leathers and pliable leathers, it's fine. For thick hide like this, shears are not really going to be your best friend, unfortunately. For a short length, a couple inches or something, it's fine. But once you go beyond that, like an entire strap, cutting with the scissors, it can be done. But what you'll see along the edge is a lot of like shallow angles, if you know what I mean. It looks almost jagged, like teeth, if you look along the edge, and that's where the scissor has been kind of cutting in as you're going along, but it's very difficult to see. So yeah, it's possible, but no, the results aren't great. Steve's in the house. You can go ahead and start now. Thank you so much, sir. Okay, so there's my second piece. And Muchi says, can we lap several leathers and use this tool to cut them through if we want to cut multiple handles? I wouldn't recommend that. You're talking about stacking leather on top of each other and then cutting through them. I mean, anything's possible, really, but it's very easy for the leathers underneath to shift around. So you might look down and see that you're cutting straight, but the leathers underneath may have shifted. So that might not be the best option for you. What do you suggest we do when the leather available isn't enough to give long lengths of handles? Unfortunately, I know you're not looking for this answer, but it is the answer, and you probably already know it. Buy longer leather. If you're not getting the length that you need, cutting shorter pieces and then skiving the ends and then folding them and then stitching them through and then folding them back in some kind of French seam. You know, you see that on cheaper bags. If you're making handmade stuff, though, it's not something that you want to get involved in. Change the design, make the handle smaller. Use different kind of handle design completely so that you don't need long lengths for whatever reason. So it's I would change it with design if you really can't get longer lengths of leather. The answer is always buy more leather. Has it ever not been the answer? And that's 3. Hello, J Baker or Sedgwick for thick belt leather, 5 to 6 millimeters. Which one would you love or recommend? My recommendation would be, don't listen to recommendations. Obtain samples from both and see which one works better. I mean, if I'm using a new leather, I want to know what it cuts like, what it skives like, what it prick marks like, what happens when you skive it with the machine versus skiving by hand. Does the edge, does it edge finish really well? Does it take edge paint? Does it burnish? And just kind of use samples to conduct tests on to see what it's like of both. And if they both look great and they both work very similar, go for the cheapest option, really. But with those two, you can't really go wrong. They're kind of a mainstay. I mean, of all the tanneries that have died in the UK, they're still going. So it kind of says something about them. Stephen says, every time I set out to start a project, my workshop, especially the bench, looks like a grenade has hit it. Please tell me I'm not alone. Mate, if I could if I could turn this camera around, you'd think it was Chernobyl. I'm very selective where the camera goes. This has been needed like a deep clean for the longest time. My floor is covered in leather remnants. It's beginning to look less like floor. I really need to tidy up. Tobias says, my bench looks like an explosion before even starting a project. Yeah, the amount of times I'm just like moving everything aside. I've got like 8 feet by 4 feet on this table and I'm still like, using every inch. What do I use as a workbench base? Is there wood under your mat? Well, there's carpet underneath. But I built these on, there's 6 table legs underneath and they're all 4x2. And then there's like shelving underneath there for various stuff. And on this side, excuse me, I've got tubes full of leather and stuff like that. So yeah, the workbench base itself is 1 inch MDF, 1 inch MDF. And then obviously you've got wood support underneath that it's kind of screwed to and everything. Well, it's screwed to from brackets from underneath. I went with 1 inch MDF rather than 3/4 inch just because it's got so much more weight to it. It absorbs a lot more sound and energy when you hit stuff with it. But it is freaking heavy. What handle width would you recommend for laptop bags versus female handbags versus small sling bags? Says Moochie. What I would recommend is a book. And give me a second. I'm trying to remember my ill ass is trying to remember this name. It's literally just bag making by a company called Fashionary. So the word fashionary. No, bag design by Fashionary. Brilliant book. It kind of will answer a lot of design questions about which type of bag works best with this kind of length handle. It depends whether you're holding it by your side, something that you're going to have in your arm, or something that you're going to hold over your shoulder. Each one requires a different length depending on what you want to do with it. So if it's a clutch, it's going to have a very small handle, if at all. If it's a handbag, it may have a 14 centimeter drop handle. If it's a larger bag like this, for about 18. But it really depends on the design. So I would recommend, it's not a particularly expensive book, but Bag Design by Fashionary is a good place to start. It won't teach you anything about bag making or leatherworking, but it answers a lot of questions about design and breaks things down and explains what they are. And I recommend that book to everybody. It's a lot of people buy it thinking they're going to start following through and making all these different bags. It's not like that. It's like a supplement to your learning. Teaching you about different hardware, different leather, different materials, reinforcements, design breakdown of famous bags, measurements. There's so much in there that's really, really good stuff. Hopefully it picks it up. Can you share any tips on real leather identification? You'll know it when you pick it up. If you're not sure whether what you're handling is real leather or not, it's probably not. Or it might be some kind of reconstituted leather, bonded leather, that kind of thing. But what you're looking for on the side is some kind of grain. And when I say grain, not like a wood grain or a weave of anything like that. If you see any weave, like a fabric or material, it's not real. But what you're looking for is kind of, what's the word for it? It's not coming to me now. A non-woven grain to it. And obviously the smell, the texture, the way it handles, the way it moves, it's all telltale signs. But the smell and the look are going to give it away. If you're looking at a bag without being able to touch it or anything like that, and you're seeing grain on the outside, you'll never be able to tell, because fake leather is usually polyurethane over a dense foam layer, and then a bonded fabric layer. It's multiple. It's like not a plywood, but a ply of some kind. And then you look at leather that is finished over the top with the pigment. Again, it's using polyurethane as a pigment over the top to give a uniform. And that leather may be embossed to look more like grain leather. So it's very difficult at face value. But if you're able to pick up the leather, you'll know it's real when you pick it up. If it comes in a hide that looks misshapen and it's variation. If you're picking up a hide and it's 1.5 meters by 1 meter rectangle, obviously it's not going to unlikely to be real because no one would cut that. But if you're picking up a product that could be leather and it might not be, it's very difficult to identify something at that stage in the build because it might be leather, but it might be reconstituted leather, which is like the chipboard of leather. But yeah. Sam says, there's any particular type of leather items you enjoy making? Bags, to be honest, because they're so practical and they're useful. Wallets, I'm not actually, strangely enough, not a big fan of making. They're so fiddly and time consuming. By the time you finish one wallet, you could have made a bag. That I really enjoy making. I mean, it's a bit of a cop-out to say I enjoy all, but I honestly do. I would say, yeah, probably bags. Handbags are quite fun, although I don't get to use the finished article. I do find them, you know, a really well-designed handbag, a thing of beauty. You can get a little bit more creative with a more feminine type of bag than you can with a more masculine type of bag. I mean, I've attempted to get a bit more creative with the materials on this, but it's not designed, it's a rectangle, right? It's more masculine in its functionality. So yeah, I'd say handbags probably out of all the bags are quite interesting because it allows you to be just a little bit more creative on that side. Yeah. Any part of the leather production that gives you some sort of anxiety? Yeah, I really hate threading needles. I don't know why. It's just like, oh God. Sometimes if I know I've got multiple lengths to get through, I'll thread them all in one go. For some reason, I just really hate doing it. Something must have happened to me when I was too young to remember as a child. A 2-year-old threading needles in a factory or something, I don't remember. Let's go over to the belt knife skiving machine. Sorry, guys. There's much light over here. Hopefully you can see what is going on. Let's give this a sharpen up. I mentioned that I was going to sharpen it actually. Apologies for the noise. Safety glasses, always good, just in case there's any little chips of metal. Or... You never know, right? And just let it cool down for a second. Sometimes you can stop it and just feel it. If it feels hot on the edge, don't continue. That doesn't. Obviously, make sure you stop. It's starting to get a bit warm, so that should be enough on there. Let's wipe this down a little. This is actually a sharpening rod for knives. And I find it's better than the one that comes supplied with these machines. So I'm just taking off the burr on the inside. A rather awful noise that you hear is actually when the tip is contacting the... There's a cup on the inside that's like corrugated and it throws off leather. Looking for 1.2 to 1.3. We've got 1.3 there, so that's good. Just going to double check. Make sure that underlayer split is going through the gap. That's gone through. Yeah, so if we have a look at the split that I've just created there. Okay, this is a finished back. This is a split piece of leather. If I put, if I burnish this and then put edge paint over it or Angelus paint or something like that to make it look like a grain leather. That's basically what split leather is. It's two pieces. The top part is sold off at a premium price for premium leather goods, and the bottom split is then refinished to look like the top split. So Muchi says, are handmade gloves really essential during production? Oh, hand gloves, sorry. Our hand well, there's two reasons I do it. One is these are cut resistant level 5, which is the highest level that you can possibly get. It takes me 2 seconds to shove it on, okay? A fraction of a second to lose a finger. And if this saves my hand, then, I mean, I'm not needing particularly fine, I'm not hand stitching. I probably still could hand stitch with this. I wouldn't say it was essential, but being as I'm on camera and people look to me for information and advice on leathercraft, when I'm using a potentially, well, it's not a dangerous machine, but if I shoved my hand in there, I'd lose some fingers. So it has the potential for danger. So putting on a safety glove and some safety glasses is probably a good idea for someone like me to do. Okay, I'm sure you can read between the lines there. Do I put safety glasses on every time? No, generally I take them off when I've finished sharpening the machine, because it's spinning very fast and there's another sharpening wheel also spinning fast. If anything breaks off, you know, a cheap pair of glasses, that's a devastating injury that changes the course of your life. Or put some safety glasses on. Freak accidents happen all the time. Plus, when I was 16 years old, I got a summer job working in a builder's yard. And I was just kind of like told to do a bit of this, bit of that all the time. And one day they said, we need this piece of sheet metal cut in half. Handed me an angle grinder. And told me to cut it in half. Now, I'm 16 years old. I want to make a good impression. I want to get a full-time job in this company. And let that cool down. Blades get really hot sometimes. And I thought, you know, I'm not going to say anything. I've seen it done. What I didn't realize is there's no safety guard on it. Normally, there's a safety guard, so if the disc explodes, it saves you. But they gave me a pair of these glasses to put on. So I put them on. And lo and behold, I didn't know how to use it. I went off course, so I tried to twist it back in to make it go straight. And the disc blew up in my face. Okay, I had cuts all up my face, all up my arm. And when I took my safety glasses off, there were little chips of plastic where my eyes were. Okay, had I not been wearing those safety glasses, I might not be talking to you today. I might be blind. And it was on both sides. It was everywhere. So, you know, from that day on, I took it a little bit more seriously. First time catching on a live. Hello from the US. Hello. How should I store leather? Purchase scraps from an apron maker and it's already colored. I have them enclosed in plastic bins at the moment. Ideally, you want to roll them up. I prefer grain side out. Because when you do grain side in, you can create creases in the surface if the leather is pigmented, for example. And then I wrap them in. Let's see if I can show you. Yeah, just like parcel paper, package paper, whatever you call it, postage paper. So it can breathe. You never want to store leather inside something like plastic where it can't breathe, unless it's definitely open one end. But still, so I grain side out for me, then I wrap it in that for protection of the grain so it doesn't scratch as I pull it in and out. And yeah, so we always make sure that leather can breathe. It doesn't like to be enclosed in containers where it can't breathe. Thank you for the info. Is it worth buying a skiving machine? It depends if you can justify the cost. I don't think everybody needs a skiving machine. If you're definitely in business and you're making money from it, then you can increase production. I mean, doing this by hand, I mean, I could use, the phone is currently on it, but I could use a manual pull-through splitter just fine. It needs a bit of a sharpen, so it's a bit of a pain in the arse. It just takes, you know, not very long to do it on here, so. Sometimes the split underneath just catches. So now it's kind of dropping through the opening in the desk that I cut out. Sometimes people have like a vacuum strap to this, so it kind of pulls the leather. If you're in an industrial setting, that might make more sense. Yeah, as I mentioned before, sometimes you can actually change the depth of the cut. When you're doing a really long skive like that at full speed, I can barely touch the blade at the moment. It gets very, very hot, and as metal gets hot, it expands. So you can imagine what that does to the thickness. It doesn't vary a whole lot, but it can be slightly, it can be significant. Hello, is the leather edge thinning machine you're using a servo motor? What is the brand? Does the brand really matter with those machines? But I find they generally do the same job. I think if you have the choice, and it's a similar price, having two motors, one to rotate the blade at full speed constantly, and the other one activates the feed roller, is probably like a step up. This isn't that. It has one motor and it does both at the same time. I've personally never seen an appreciable difference between the two. If you have the choice and it's a similar price, go for the dual motor. But anytime that I've ever needed to skive with this machine, it's skived. So I have no reason to upgrade it. I could, I thought about it, but then I thought, why? It's doing exactly what it needs to do. So I don't. Just joined. Are you not concerned with marking the leather with the foot? No, I'm not. And the reason is the marks usually occur. Let's get this one here, where the end of the foot that you can see here is going across the grain. So if this was a really thick piece and I was just skiving the edge, let's say that this was leather, okay, I was just going over it. Then as I skive that edge off here, maybe I want to fold it in, there will be a line in there. That's just the way veg tan works through here, because you've got an area of high pressure followed by an area of low pressure, and the difference between that causes that mark. With this strap, I am going down the center of the presser foot. So if there is any marking, which there isn't, it will be consistent across the surface. So no, it doesn't make any difference as it goes through, because it's just going down the center. Sometimes it matters, sometimes it doesn't. If you take the edge off because you want to do like a turned edge or a folded edge or something, that mark disappears when you fold it over, if you've ever noticed. If it's where you want to have like a step down in thickness towards the edge, and you use the bone folder to bone in that kind of like step where you can stitch it, where it goes during that process anyway, it's kind of where you're thinning the edge, and for whatever reason you're not doing anything with it afterwards. Then you've got you're splitting the exterior of a veg tan wallet down. That wouldn't be the best idea with a machine like this. All right, you understood. Okay, last one. That blade's cooled down a bit now. Just double checking. And this is one of the reasons I wear gloves, because I'm putting my hand underneath, and some freak accident, I actually stepped on the pedal. Oh, that wouldn't be fun. I don't think these gloves would completely save me, but it would severely reduce the damage. Okay, so let's go back to the table. Arpa says, thank you, teacher. You're very welcome. Philip is the GOAT. Thank you. My ego needs it. My ego needs it. Keep it coming. Right. Tomorrow, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be gluing these together. I've glued them very slightly oversized, but they're consistent. So I'm going to be gluing these together like so. I'm going to use a PVA for this. But either way, once these are marked out, cut, the edges are all going to be stitched together. So this strap is for the handles. It's going to be grain layer on both sides, as you can see, rather than just, I mean, you could, if you wanted to keep it simple, just cut, a piece of 2.5, 3 millimeter veg tan, something like that, with a finished rear side, finished flesh side, and, bevel the edges and call that a handle. You can absolutely do that if you want to. I'm just doing it this way around because not only does it give you a nice grain side on both sides of the handle, but at the same time, I can put a little bit of nylon reinforcement on the inside, just adds to the longevity of the handle a little bit. Hi, Philip. I have a question, says Vasco PC. How many slices can you do with a skiving knife before you have to stop? It seems to me that it dulls fast. It might be something to do with the leather that you're using or the blade material, but I think for most people, the most common reason that you're seeing, if it's like a slow, steady decline where you're having to add more and more force over time before you have to strop it again or whatever, or sharpen it, whatever you do, then it's probably the metal. Or you could be slicing it into, like, if you're using a lithographic stone, it is slightly abrasive. So as you break through the leather and slice it across, you're putting like a little micro bevel on there. And over time, your shallow angle becomes more and more steep. That's another possibility. So it could be the way that you're using it. But a very common issue is when you're sharpening, you begin to build up a burr, B-U-R-R, on the edge, like a little wave, a little curl of metal. And this little curl of metal might not curl all the way over. It might be a very slight angle like that. It's usually incredibly sharp, incredibly sharp. And you can even skive through leather for a little bit until the pressure and the wear causes it to just break off or bend over. And then you've got instantly a dull knife. So if you're skiving and then all of a sudden it's like, it just stops, usually you need to do a bit more stropping to wear away that burr. So it's just a nice, perfect edge that's left. But if that's not happening to you, it might be the metal, the quality of the steel that you're using. The steel could be a really high-end steel, but for whatever reason, they, messed up the heat treatment at the factory. That happens sometimes, especially if it's a handmade knife. Sometimes mistakes happen, and it should be like a 62 Rockwell hardness, and it turns out to be 47 for whatever reason. Something, over sharpen the edge, or it become too brittle, it goes the other way. But whatever the case, the common one is just you haven't got rid of the burr, which is just going to require either finer and finer grits, and then plenty of stropping before it's ready to use. Jack says, I hear a lot of folks in the UK say PVA glue. Is that like wood glue or Elmer's white school glue? Okay, I'm going to school you on glue. No, PVA is polyvinyl acetate. There's another, I think it's very slightly different with polyvinyl alcohol, essentially just PVA white glue. School glue is water activated PVA, which means if you're at school and you got it over your top, and then your bit, I don't know why you'd have a beard at school, in your hair, you could put water on it and it would soften again and go back to its liquid state. That's school glue, okay? It's designed for schools to stop angry parents, okay? Because if you use regular PVA, which is highly water resistant, you get it in your clothing, it's not coming out in the wash. Elmer's glue is a brand that creates glues using PVA, and wood glue is PVA glue with certain resins added to it to make it more brittle and to reduce creep over time in wood as wood expands and contracts. And also it helps create a more of an instant bond. If ever you use wood glue and you rub two pieces of wood together and suddenly it stops, that's the additives. So they're all slightly different, but they're all based on polyvinyl acetate, which is a vinyl based glue. So I hope that helps. The school glue, I use that sometimes. A lot of what I use in the courses is just, I bought loads of different school glues, which is water activated. So I can get it out of my clothes. If I drop any on the floor, I can get it out the floor. If I need to undo a part, I can soak the leather, or not soak the leather, dampen the leather and prise it apart and redo it if necessary. Gives you a bit more flexibility, as long as it's not a part that is going to be wet very often. Okay, so shoes wouldn't be a good idea to use it on. But this one that I use, can't remember the name of the brand. Anyway, it's a school glue, but very, very strong. And then I have other ones, which are, no, well, anyway, waterproof PVA. So PVAs that could do with being soaked constantly and they wouldn't turn back into PVA. If you were going to make a nice thick belt, what would you line it with? If I was going to make a nice thick belt, it's probably just one solid piece of leather. But if I was to make like a laminated belt, what leather would I use? Doesn't really matter too much, really, what you line it with, because it's not really going to be seen. As long as it's something that's pigmented, in case you sweat through it, you don't want veg tan that's just had a surface coloring, because then that could transfer onto your trousers or your pants, depends on if you're from the US. So something with a pigmented surface that's soft and compressible, but has some kind of protection for in case you get it wet or anything, so you don't want any dye transfer. So ideally something that you haven't dyed yourself. Hi Phil, could you show us the nylon reinforcement you're going to use? Is there one here? Yeah, probably something like that. On this, I'll probably use a couple layers side by side. But honestly, you don't need any particular brand. They're all the same. I'm pretty sure you can get them on Amazon and eBay now. Do you have a special choice regarding the type of steel for knives that you use? Yeah, I tend to like high-speed steel, but it's mainly because they're easy to make. There's a couple of others that I made as well, but these I make myself. And I use high-speed steel mainly because, one, it's a good steel. It's not the best in the world. It's not like Magna Cut or something like that, or CPM 3V or some fancy exotic super steel. But the great thing about high-speed steel is it tolerates getting hot very easy. So you can get it in full hardness. This is 62 Rockwell. And I made it on my bench grinder. So I put it on the grinder, stick it in the water, cool it down, put it on the grinder. And it tolerates getting hot because it's designed, high-speed steel is designed for like drill bits, for example. I can drill through metal and cut through metal. It has the hardness and durability, but also as it's drilling through, it gets very hot. And steels often, when they get hot, they get soft and they lose their ability to work as a drill bit. So I think it's cobalt that they put in. So it makes it very easy for me to grind this away. Still might take me an hour to do, but I grind it away into the angle that I want and the profile that I want, and I haven't ruined the hardness. Of course, I don't, take the mickey and leave it for ages and that kind of thing. You'll still ruin the temper on it. But if you just kind of dip, and just keep doing that, it makes it easy to make. So I use high-speed steel, but mostly because it's very forgiving to actually make it in your own workshop on a bench grinder, and then just finish it on diamond plates and you're done. And it's hard as nails, literally. Probably harder than nails, I guess. Jack says, thank you. I do woodworking mostly, so I have an assortment of glues. But I'm never sure what to use in leather. Hide glue is a heat reversible glue. I wonder if that would work with leather. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I mean, pearl glue, I guess, is a form of hide glue. It used to be common with leather. The only thing you've got to be careful of, in woodworking, where you use certain hide glues designed for woodworking, because it really reduces creep. Like they use it for violins and things like that because it's brittle, it's hard. I think some of them, unless they've got certain additives, I'm not 100% sure, may be too brittle and it would shatter like glass. If you made something like a wallet and then you bent the wallet, it would all start cracking on the inside. It has been used, but I'm not sure if it's a certain type of glue that they use. I remember I did a carpentry and joinery apprenticeship at college, and I remember there was a glue. I can't remember which glue it was. It wasn't clear. It was like sweetened condensed milk, and it stank. Oh God, it was so bad. Everything had to be hand tools. We weren't allowed to use any machinery. All the glues were like old school glues that we had to use. Oh, it's crazy. Yeah, a long time ago now. But yeah, test everything. I mean, PVA is great as long as you don't have to have an instant bond, because otherwise the rubber-based contact adhesive is going to be your friend. But if you test PVAs like this, I just pulled this off there. You know, it's not brittle. Okay. See it stretching? That's what you're looking for in a PVA. Look at the amount of stretch before it actually breaks. Some PVAs don't allow for that stretch, and they actually become quite brittle. So it's a good idea to test them. And when you find a PVA that works well, it's strong, it's flexible, and it has the properties that you'll look for, buy a whole batch of it, okay? Which lining material would you suggest for bags, and do you have a sample to show us? I mean, it's ideally when you're making a bag, you want something that is a pigmented leather. Let's see if I can find one here that is designed for linings. Yeah, actually, I'll use this for the de Havilland travel bag. So this is a lining leather, and this is a calf leather in cream. Generally, they're smoother, not heavily textured grains. They will have quite a heavier pigmented surface, and generally a little bit softer in temper, which makes them a little bit more forgiving to work with regards to lining. But realistically, anything that is going to resist spills and water, anything you can wipe clean is going to be good for linings. I love suede linings, but they're also very impractical because it's impossible to get stains out. So if you're going to go suede, I would get a very dark color, like a black or a navy or a dark burgundy or something like that. But they make beautiful linings because they're so soft on the inside, especially like a kid skin suede is the best. But yeah, anything that's going to resist spills and is soft and it has a uniform finish on the surface would be my recommendation for bag linings. What's the measure of a knife sharpness? Should we feel as if it were buttering bread when cutting through skin or leather? I take it. Yeah, I mean, it shouldn't be too hard. Some leathers are going to be much harder than others. If you're using a very dry veg tan with not a lot of oils in them, those can be quite rough, even with a very sharp skiving knife. Some other leathers can be very, very stretchy, so it almost feels like it's difficult to cut through them without pressing down and forwards really hard. So it's very difficult to quantify what it should feel like. But if, as you're cutting through, it's folding over and it's not severing very well, that's a good indication it's not quite sharp enough. You'll know, is the easy answer. You'll know when your knife is sharp enough, because all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, this is how it's meant to be. And you'll be like, yeah. So if you're not sure, it's probably not sharp enough, unfortunately. Knife sharpening is a skill that a lot of people underestimate. You can sharpen a chef's knife probably quite well. You can sharpen a hunting knife, a utility knife, till it's usable. Sharpening a skiving knife requires not just a little bit more knowledge, it requires exponentially more experience to get something that shaves really, really well. Okay, if you can sharpen a straight razor, you can sharpen a skiving knife. So it's not like it's impossible. I mean, I've done courses on it before, and lots of the students have managed it, obviously, but it's one of those things you can't get around the need for practice. How do you keep your pieces overall lightweight during production? I would say I factor in weight into a product to a certain extent, but I don't compromise on design or strength just to get something super lightweight. Because sometimes when you make something lightweight, you then reduce stiffness to a certain extent. I mean, if you're creating a beautiful leather piece, a handmade product, it's like an expensive camera. If you spent thousands on a Lumix or a Sony camera or Canon, and it was like whoosh, you picked it up so quickly because it was light. It wouldn't feel like quality almost. Or you picked up a Rolex watch and it felt like it was made of balsa wood. You'd be thinking something's wrong here. There's a certain quality associated with weight. That said, if it's not necessary to the design, cut it out. Okay, if you can get away with having a thinner lining, a thinner reinforcement, a thinner exterior, and you're still getting the same aspects of the design that you're looking for with regards to shape and structure, etc., then then go lighter. But I wouldn't compromise design, functionality, and quality and durability just to get it a few ounces lighter. People expect a full leather, high quality leather piece to be a little bit heavier than something they picked up in a market stall in Ventimiglia in Italy. It's like they expect it to be heavier than the knockoff version. So there's a certain quality with weight, but again, if it's not essential, thin it down or don't include it so that it's not too heavy. Thank you very much. It's Jack. Appreciate your knowledge and your time. Hope your cough clears up for you. Yeah, me too. It's been almost 2 weeks. It was a cold that lasted like 24 hours. It wasn't even that bad, some sniffles, and then immediately went straight to a chest infection. And that's what it's been. Every morning, like coughing. Flo, hi, I'm thinking about picking up an awl from Jerome David. Which size would you suggest? I'm mainly using 3.38 millimeter French stitching chisels, and the slits are about 2 millimeters long. So a 2 millimeter awl? Yeah, just remember that it's tapered, right? So this is the Jerome David awl. So it's thinner at the front than it is at the back. So I don't know where they're measuring it from. When I got this, which I didn't pay for, was sent to me nicely, there was only one size. I'm not sure what it is, but it's tapered all the way from the tip to the back. It's not the same size. So I don't know where they're measuring it from. Yeah, I mean, you can always buy the different size. If you've got the cash to spend on one of these awls, you could probably buy a couple of sizes, right? You can either buy it now and save it on postage, or at a later date if you want to. I'm not 100% sure what to recommend on that, because I don't know if the 2 millimeter is measured 5 millimeters in, 10 millimeters in, or 15, because they're all going to be different, unless it's straight-sided and it's a new product that I'm not aware of. But one thing that you can do for depth, if you want to, is just get like, let's use this one here. Just use a bit of scrap. So if you want to keep it consistent depth-wise, and you can build these up. All I've done is just taken a 5 millimeter. You can use any size you want. Hole punch out a hole. Put it on the end of your awl, and then push the awl through like a scrap piece of leather. And what that does is it pushes it right to the back there, as you can see, and then do that again and again and again and again. So if you want just the tip going through the leather so that you don't overcut, you can build up a few of them, or you can take them off and put them back on again. It's really up to you. But yeah, you can do that to change the awl depth so it's consistent every time. So if you're using a tapered awl, that's one little trick that you can do. So maybe if you're not 100% sure, just contact the seller and just say, it says 2 millimeters, but if it's tapered, where are they measuring 2 millimeters from? Are there any ways to resharpen blunt scissors, or is new purchase the only way out? Yeah, you can sharpen scissors. Just, I wouldn't recommend sharpening the insides of scissors. I'll show you the right way, the inside here. Because you might, I don't know if you can tell in the light here, but it's not flat. It's actually very slightly concave, very slightly scalloped out, so that just the tip is making contact between them. They're not actually fully touching. So don't sharpen the inside, but you have here an edge, which you can then place down a sharpening stone, and you just move it forwards and backwards on your sharpening stone, and you can feel where it is, and then just kind of draw it towards you a few times. Draw it towards you. It might be curved, so you might need to kind of pressure from the back, and then as you pull in, pressure to the front. It gets a little bit complex if that's the case, like this one. But yeah, it's possible. Just sharpen. I recommend sharpening this part, and don't sharpen this part, because then you increase surface area. and your scissors don't work as well when you do that. They stop cutting as well. So yeah, it's absolutely possible. Just got to take your time with it. If in doubt, just get like a black marker pen. I won't do it to those, but the edge that you want to sharpen, just mark it. So every time you do a stroke, you can have a look at it and you can see if you're sharpening the back edge, the front edge, and where you're missing to make it a little bit easier for you. Your response on weight consideration was very relieving. Yeah, but that's it is a personal opinion. That doesn't mean I'm right. It just means that I won't compromise on everything so that I've got a lightweight product, because many times people don't want something to feel completely fly away. There might be times where that is something that people do want, maybe a travel bag. So you might, instead of using all leather on everything, you might use fabric. You know, this, although it's glued to leather on the inside, this is a little bit lighter than a bag that would be made fully of vegetable tan leather. If I made this with the same thickness of pure veg tan leather, this would be considerably heavier. So if somebody does a lot of traveling professionally, they want something nice, but they don't want it to be heavy before they put anything in it. They may consider weight a little bit more, but they may just get a practical bag made of fabric, and when it wears out, they just buy a new one. So it really depends on the client, but yeah, compromising on the design for weight is not something that I would consider. Sip more warm water for your cough, or take menthol sweets. No, I found the best for a cough is Macallan 21. So if you have any, please send it through to Leathercraft Masterclass, PO Box. Does going through the holes drilled with a straight tipped awl, or one by one, or later? Oh, right, okay. So which is better when using an awl? Prick marking and then manually finishing every hole with a piece of cork underneath, versus making the hole as you stitch? For a beginner, you'll probably notice that making the holes all the way through with a piece of cork underneath will give you slightly more consistent stitching. But as you gain more experience and you're using an awl as you're stitching, and you know, making a hole and then putting your needles through and then pulling and then carrying on, you'll notice that there's probably not a lot of difference between the two. When you're using it to stitch, you can very easily see whether your awl is going through consistently, because you can see both sides most of the time and you can keep it consistent. Whereas sometimes in a cork, if your arm gets tired and you change position on your hands and then carry on, and like, oh, my elbow's aching after going through this entire belt, and you go back to doing this and you lean over a bit more to get a bit more pressure, because every time you make a minute change is usually an inconsistent angle. So even though you're doing it consistently, or it feels like you are, you look on the rear side and there's like going all over the place. So I think for a beginner, pre-punching all the holes with an awl may work, but that's not what an awl's designed for, really. But you can get away with doing that. But if you're doing that all the time, you're not using it while you're stitching, which means you're missing out on practice. Because when you get good at that, it's just so handy. It's a really handy skill to have. It's like sharpening. There's a lot of questions. I'm just going to carry on answering these questions. I'm wondering how fast you can make that crocodile bifold from your course, in like hours or days, and how much would you charge for a wallet design? I haven't priced that up, so it would be difficult, but it would be in excess of £1,000 for sure. Time-wise, I really don't know, because I'm filming it all. You know, I'm constantly changing the camera angles, constantly moving the lights around, explaining the techniques. I would have to literally do it from start to finish. Definitely in a weekend, but I don't know if I could do it in an entire day. I mean, I could, but would the quality be up to standard if I'm kind of speeding my way through it to get it done? So that would have to be factored in. Last one, traffic areas, referring to areas mostly in use, like the bottom of the piece, handles, and zipped areas. Yeah, I picked up on that, but I don't know what the question was regarding. If you're looking to mitigate the negative effect of high wear areas from showing signs of wear, a higher quality leather, improving the design so the corner is kind of less sharp and more rounded overall. I forget the exact term. Using piping that can be replaced instead of just folding in. Higher quality leather and leathers that are the same color underneath as compared to the surface. So if you're using a really poor quality leather like this, like chrome tanned, and it's like a light blue underneath, and then it's red on the surface, and when you wear through, you get this like light blue gray looking thing underneath. I mean, it's just you want to make sure that as it wears, it's the same color, so it shows up less. So better quality leather, better quality design is the main thing there. This masterclass should be a paid one. Your patience is worth emulating. Thank you very much. And guys, I'm going to leave it on that fantastic ego boost there. And for those of you who are brand new to Leathercraft and you want to improve your hand stitching, don't forget there's still a free course on leathercraftmasterclass.com. I know I mention this every time, but there's always new people that might want to see how I do some hand stitching. And so go onto the website, there's a pop-up, put your email in, and I'll send you the free course immediately. There is going to be some hand stitching. These are going to be needing to be glued together and hand stitched. And that's coming up in the next few days. And I will be doing lives on that. So if you have more questions, feel free to tune in. Just make sure your notifications are on. So if you want to join in on the live, you have more questions and stuff to talk about, then obviously you'll get a notification on your phone. Leathercraft Masterclass has gone live and you'll be able to join me in the workshop again. But guys, thank you so much. And great interaction today. It's always encouraging to see. And I will see you in the next live. Take care, guys. Bye.